So welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa. Should be an interesting meeting this week again. We had lots of activities in the last month, and we'll talk about those. And I want to take the opportunity again to thank CAA for sponsoring us for the wrap on the trailer. So the agenda today, we'll talk about climate change friendly lifestyle upgrades. So Mike will go through what he's done to his house to make it more climate friendly. Then we'll do some EVX updates. And then Mike will do the EV news, and we'll talk about past and future events. And as I said, you'll see that we have a lot of past events for the last month, and very, very exciting weekend last weekend. And once we've done that, we'll talk about the roundtable, or we get to the roundtable. So without further ado, let me go forward here. There we go. Oh, before I pass it over to Mike, I just I came across this thing here on the left-hand side and wanted to show that to you guys because we talked a lot about forecasting the growth of market share for EVs. And what you see on the left-hand side is what the Boston Consulting Group has forecast over the last 4 or 5 years. So Boston Consulting Group, for those who don't know them, in the management consulting world, they're one of the top-notch firms that you would use to do analysis and forecast and that kind of stuff. So they're very, very well renowned. That being said, like every other group similar to them, every other organization similar to them, they have somewhat of a bias towards being conservative. So if you look at the first estimate there in purple, so Craig's favorite color in 2018, they were estimating that in 2030, 21% of the market share would be electric. That's in the US. In 2020, as the market seemed to grow faster than they expected, they upped that to 26% for 2030. In 2021, again, they upped it to 42%. They almost doubled their forecast. And they did the same thing again in 2022. They upped it to 53%. So what we're seeing there is we're seeing the consulting firms put in estimates that are more realistic than what they had before. And actually, they fall in line with what we see on the right-hand side there, which is the forecast that Mike has built. And we are seeing, we think we're underestimating the market share for 2030. But in our case, it's showing somewhere around 70% in 2030, which is still higher than what Boston Consulting Group is forecasting. So bottom line is we're seeing the reality of the technology adoption curve actually happening, contrary to what some of the analysts were saying. So just thought we'd review that a bit. So on to Mike with decarbonizing his home.
Okay, all right, nice. Thank you. That's my neighbor's pool. Yeah, so overview. You want to click next. There's a few like transitions and stuff. It's going to be fancy, but the internet here sucks. So it'll be a little slow. Okay, don't click too much. So basically what I'm going to talk about tonight is my house. Mine's the one that's not with the pool. It has the lawn that looks like it's dying. I'm going to talk about my cars and stuff. It's basically stuff that you can do to decarbonize your life. With the car, windows and doors, appliances, heating, next steps, that kind of thing. And these are all things that everybody can do to get rid of CO2 from your lives. Now, there's two ways, like we all know the climate's changing. We all know we're the cause of it. And there's two parts to that equation, right? There's the part that the oil industry wants you to believe, which is that it's all our fault individually. And they want you to sort of freak out and be like, it's a huge problem. And what can I do, my insignificant little self? So I might as well just give up and keep the status quo going, right? And then the other part is actually the people with the capital. So the oil companies, the car makers, they have a responsibility too, right? They're the ones that actually cause most of the pollution. It's companies. And then the biggest emitters are like, there's like 8 of them in the world that account for most of the pollution on Earth. And so it's really their responsibility. But what their actual responsibility is to not just stop polluting, but it's to give us the tools we need as individuals to stop polluting, right? So it's a 2-part thing where sorry, there's people talking behind me, so hopefully you guys aren't too interrupted with that. But basically there's stuff that we can do as individuals as well. And now me changing stuff isn't going to move the needle that much, but it's a start. And if we all start doing this, then that does move the needle, and that's what's important. So we can go to the next slide, please. We'll talk about my house. So this is a bit of the GHG stuff first. So as you can see here, Canada, each Canadian emits about 14 tons of CO2 per year, right? That's on us. We're among the worst on Earth. 13% of the overall emissions that we do make are from buildings, 26 are from vehicles, 40% are from basically those 2 things. So your house, where you live, and what you drive. Climate-friendly technologies now are available, and it's on us to actually start using them, right? We have to decide to use these things. We are trending in the right direction, but we need to start accelerating that move quickly. So I did a little like carbon thing. There's a carbon test you can do online where it basically tells you like how good you are. And so I ran through my house and I got 6.8 tons of CO2 after I did all my changes. So I went down from 14 to 6.8, which isn't bad. And then some data there from StatCan and the government, our world and data and whatnot. So next slide, please. All right, so this is my house. Click. I wish I had the clicker, but so my house was built in 1964. This is when I bought it. It looked like this. It's a ranch style house, just your typical Alta Vista house. I had a diesel Golf TDI because I thought that was the good thing at the time. It had long range. It was very fuel efficient. I had a typical gas furnace. Natural gas is called natural because they discovered it in the earth before they had to make it, right? In the olden days, gas for like lighting and cooking and everything was created out of coal, right? It was coal gas. And then they discovered, when they were doing oil drilling, they discovered this other gas that was just coming out of the ground by itself, and they called that natural gas. That's actually methane. So it's methane gas. So when people say natural gas, it's not natural, it's methane. It makes it sound, it's the biggest scam in history, basically. Best greenwashing ever. So I have a gas hot water tank that came with the house. So lots of gas in my house, and not just from me eating. Yeah, typical Ottawa house. Gas dryer, right? We have a gas dryer, and we have more. Keep clicking. Gas stove, right? We got a gas range because gas ranges are cool. And we had the original 1960s attic insulation, which was an R value of like 5.
You mean lack of
insulation? Or lack of insulation is better. And the original basement insulation, which was literally an inch of fiberglass with like a paper backing on it, and some dead birds in there. Our windows were from the 1980s, so those were like state-of-the-art 1980s cheap windows, aluminum. And then so we changed our cars. That was the first thing we did because that was the easiest thing we did. Volkswagen forced our hand. So we had a diesel Golf. There was Dieselgate. So in 2017, Volkswagen gave us our money back and took our car away. And so we decided, well, forget this. We're not going to buy. We don't like buying gas. Gas is annoying. So we decided to switch to plug-in hybrid and EV. And the story was, the original idea was to just buy the plug-in hybrid, right? The minivan, the Pacifica hybrid. And then there were delays. So we were like, well, now there's a timing issue where Volkswagen's taking our car away and we're not going to have a car until August because Chrysler. So I was like, well, we already have the charger installed for the van. So what can we do to like bridge the gap? So we went on AutoTrader, found a cheap used Leaf, bought it because we already had the charger. And so that was our like bridge car. Now we have both. And then the van eventually came. So we at least cut our gas consumption down significantly by using an EV and a PHEV. We kept the 100 amp service that came with the house, right? We didn't need a panel upgrade because everything in the house burns gas. So that was helpful. And then next slide, please. So then we started thinking, like, what else can we do, right? What else can we do? So we did the attic, right? Because at the time, Ford had not been elected yet. and there were some rebates going around for improving your house. And so one of the easiest things, one of the cheapest things was getting the attic done. So we did the roof attic there. You can see that's the original insulation on top, and then the blown stuff in the bottom. So we went from a, what does it say, R40 to an R60 blown cellulose total. So that helped a lot. We also gutted the basement and rebuilt it. And we completely re-insulated when we did that, of course. So we put R5 foam board on the walls, which were cement. And then we built a stud wall in front of the foam and then put R14 on there. So we have a total R value of 19, which is not bad. And then the earth itself is has an R value too. So that probably helps. So that's the insulation stuff we did, because there's no point in upgrading your furnace if your house is a leaky, drafty old beast. So the next step we did was last year, we did the windows. So we replaced all the upstairs windows because those were from the 80s and they were garbage. We replaced all the doors because those were also, well, as you saw, they were hideous. I don't know what the previous owner was thinking. I guess they wanted a saloon look. The original windows were horrible. They were single panes of glass, and there were two of them, and they were on sliders, and you could hear through them. It was ridiculous. And the front door, you could see light around the perimeter of it. The seal was that bad. So we've replaced those with proper thermal pane windows. And we changed the color, and they're actually bigger windows because it turns out there were 3 generations of replacement windows that had built up. So it was sort of accumulated window frames in our window holes. I'll get to questions at the end. There's a spot at the end for that. I see you, Ruth. Great. So next slide, please. So hang on to your question. We'll get to it. So we did the windows, and then I was like, well, this gas dryer is kind of annoying. So on the right, you see our old washer dryer combo, pretty typical, right? Washers on the bottom, dryers on the top, I think. Yeah, that's the way it is. And then we got this cool, for Christmas actually last year, this cool all-in-one washer dryer thing. It's a ventless combo dryer. It's the same size as a conventional North American washing machine or dryer. But what it does is you put in the soap at the top and you put your clothes in, and then you push play and you set your cycle and you push play, and then the clothes come out a couple hours later dry and clean. It's magic. And it doesn't bend to the outside. There's no extra holes in my house. We actually, because it's so cool and convenient, we put it in the kitchen, because in our house, going to the basement and the furnace room to do laundry was the worst. So we've put it in the kitchen instead, which makes it more convenient. So we can get rid of the gas ones. All right, next one. So it's a heat pump dryer is how it works. So that's pretty neat. And then we got an air source heat pump this summer. So that replaced our furnace. So we had a conventional gas furnace. It was 20 years old, something like that. It was oversized for the house, as most furnaces seem to be. And then we had a 30-year-old air conditioner. It was almost as old as I am. And that thing was way undersized. So it was running every summer, it would just run constantly because it wasn't a big enough air conditioner to actually meet the demand of the house. So we thought it was always broken, but it turns out it was just really little. So we replaced that with a Mitsubishi Zuba system. And this thing is magic. So unfortunately, it necessitated a 200 amp upgrade to our house. So we did that too as part of this project, which was about $5,000, I want to say, something like that, to get us from 100 amp to 200. So we got a shiny new panel, big conductor from the pole to the house. And then we got big circuits for this Zuba system, which I am looking forward to using. I turned it on to heat for the first time this morning, and that was kind of neat because it barely ran. It was really just barely doing a thing, but it was cool. Heat was coming out. It was just not using a lot. So the Zuba is really neat. Next slide. All right, so we have a little bit of before and after. So before, we have the ugly saloon door, ugly ass house. I just swore on YouTube, so that'll be great. I'll have to beep that later. And then on the bottom, we have what it looks like today. So we replaced our plug-in hybrid actually with an Ioniq 5. So now we're pure EV, so no more gas at all. My last tank of gas was in January. I still don't maintain the lawn, so there you go. But, my house looks better, so that's neat. So if you click a couple times, I'll go through. There's a bit of a checklist here. So not too much, not too fast. Slow down, slow down. All right. So yeah, replace the diesel and gas cars with fully electric. Improved the building envelope with insulation, doors, and windows, as I mentioned. Replaced our gas dryer with a heat pump dryer. Now, and then there's little highlighting. It's supposed to. Internet. Anyway. Yeah. Next. Click. All right. So then the heat pumps on the side of the house. So cold climate heat pump, which is pretty neat. And then we did the electrical panel, which is, the power pole behind my house is where I circled there. And then the next one is, okay, future plans. So don't click too fast on this one because there's some like animations I did. Hopefully they work. We'll see. So future plans. So click once. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is replace the gas stove with an induction range because I only have 2 things in my house that are still burning stuff, right? Everything else is electric now. So I just have the 2 things. I have the stove and the hot water tank, and those are pretty easy to change, right? So the gas stove I'm going to replace with an induction stove. Unfortunately, GE stopped making the one that I wanted, so now it's not going to match the rest of my appliances. So that's annoying, but whatever. We'll get through it. Next one, we're going to replace the hot water tank with an electric one because it turns out my hot water tank's like 20 years old and it's kind of due anyway. So time to do that. I was looking at a hot water, like a hybrid hot water tank. I don't know if it's worth it in my case. They do exist though, so if you can get away with it, go for it. But I think I have enough power on the board capacity-wise, and the normal electric ones are cheap enough to buy that I think it'll be fine, and I don't think the energy savings will be worth the extra cost of the hybrid. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's going to be electric either way, so we'll to be determined there. Next, we're going to tell Enbridge to take a hike. Once we've done that, and that's supposed to like be an anti-Enbridge, whatever. So we're going to tell them, I'm looking forward to this, to tell them to, cut my gas line and close the account. And then I can stop paying the oil and gas industry at least my share of money. And hopefully I can convince other people to do that. And then finally, what we want to do is live in the house for a year as an all electric house, right? Everything's electric. And once we have a sort of base load idea of how much we consume in a year, we'll get a solar panel system, ideally, to meet that annual demand. I may even throw in some like battery solutions. I like the Solar Edge system. It's got micro power optimizers and stuff. So anyway, that's what I'm looking at for the future. I think there's maybe one more slide. Click. Yeah, solar
redesign, but
the what?
The house redesign.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right, the redesign. Yeah. Wait till my wife hears about that. No. So we did an energy audit for getting all the stuff done, right? So we're going to get some rebates and whatnot to do the heat pump and the windows and all that. So our initial consumption for the house as a 1964 house with like crappy windows and doors was 104 gigajoules per year, which would itself generate 4 tons of GHGs per year is what they estimated, right? So the windows and door upgrades will reduce that by 12 gigajoules a year. The heat pump will do the biggest dent at 21 gigajoules per year. So a total reduction of 33. So it'll bring our old house down to 71, which is closer to like a new build house, right? And that should save us, based on the math I was doing, 3.7 tons. So we started with 4 tons of GHG, and this is where the real thing comes in. We're going to reduce the GHG emissions by, somebody's not muted. Can somebody get muted, please? We're going to reduce our overall GHG emissions by 93%, which should bring us down to 3.7. So we'll just be emitting 0.3 tons of CO2 per year, in theory. Next slide, please. All right, so the whole point of this presentation is that it's simple to make these changes, right? Like the technology exists. We don't have to wait for future technologies to be invented to like decarbonize our life. We can start doing that right now. And it is on us as individuals to stop. We're part of the problem, right? We're all burning stuff in our lives, and our whole society needs to do this all together. You can't wait for somebody on high to tell you what to do. You should, take initiative. And so we can do this. Like if you have the ability and the means, you can start making changes today. And these are some of the changes that you can do to stop burning stuff, because that's the mission, right? That's the whole point, is to stop burning stuff, right? So the barriers, as I put in here, are not technological, they're psychological, right? We just need to decide to start making better choices. That's all we need to do. I mean, yes, some of them cost a bit more money. There are government incentives to help with that. As you know, like as EV owners, we know like an EV is not the cheapest type of car to buy, but you'll save in the long term, right? And you cut your emissions at the same time. So things that you can do are, make your next car an EV. Most of us as part of EVCO have already decided to do that or have already done it, so great. But we can also, make when you need to replace your furnace and your air conditioner, make it a cold climate heat pump. If you need to get a new appliance, get ones that don't burn gas. Improve your efficiency, right? There's no point in getting the most efficient heat source if your house is a screen door awning, right? Like,
so Mike, I wanted to add that like we were talking about earlier, I'm getting the Zuba installed this week. So in my case, I actually this morning before I left for Toronto, I had the distinct pleasure of calling Enbridge and telling them and making an appointment for them to remove my meter.
Right.
So
I'm excited to do this.
yeah, that's incredible. So Wednesday next week they're removing the meter, and the only thing that will be burning carbon in my place that's left is the barbecue. So
Yep.
and
I use charcoal, so that's arguably short cycle carbon for me. So who knows? I think Ruth was the first one with a question, so we'll start there, and then I see there's a few other questions coming in. So go ahead and.
No, I might have missed it at the beginning, but what year did you buy your house?
I bought it in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So you kept Pearson sliders for 12 years?
Hey, I'm a millennial.
Wow.
I don't have a lot of money.
Oh my goodness. No, but my ex-husband
You were the
ran a
first.
conversion company. They converted, that was their single business years and years and years ago, was just converting Pearsons.
Yeah, they're the worst. I hated them. It was hilarious because when the new guys came, they took measurements and then they go and they measure your window frames or whatever, and you're like, okay, whatever, I don't pay attention. And then they go away and they make your windows and they come back several months later with your windows, right? And they go to install it and they start removing stuff. And the guy, he was swearing in French. And he's like, you have 3 layers of windows in here, right? So he's like, there's the original wooden frames, which are like 2x4s basically on the rough opening. And then he's like, you've got aluminum windows from the 1970s, and then you have aluminum windows from the 1980s, like on top of them. And he's like, so you've got like 3 layers. So when they removed all the old frames, our new windows are enormous. Like we have significantly more glass than we used to. And they're actually much more efficient, which is amazing.
There you go. Very nice.
Yeah. Next person, I think it was Craig.
So my parents actually just started, their solar panels were installed today, and it was installed last week, but commissioned or whatever, and they have given back the grid their first kilowatt of energy type thing. So the solar panels are live and going, and it's a solar edge. And certainly what I've seen of having, interacted with it for about 15 minutes looks really good. I do like the solar edge. The only question I have for you, and one of the things you bragged about during the windstorm was how you were able to run your all your fridges and all that on your car, and that's great, but it's only like that's only the fridges. Like heating takes a lot more energy. I'm just sort of interested, like the one reason I'm worried about getting rid of my Enbridge account is what do I do if we have a prolonged ice storm in February? How are you going to keep your house warm in February if it's a week-long ice storm?
So the thing is, Craig, gas furnaces can't run without electricity either. So you might have a gas furnace, but it's not allowed to operate unless there's electricity to run the ventilation. So it will lock itself out if it doesn't have electricity. So whether your gas or whether your air source heat pump doesn't matter, because in a long-term blackout, neither is going to work. So the only way to heat your home in that case would be to have like a wood burning fireplace, or a gas range, I guess, but then you'd have to vent it somehow. So normal furnaces don't work in a blackout either. So my plan is, and assuming this is not cost prohibitive, is to, once I get my solar array sort of sized for my house, I want some sort of battery backup capacity just for that critical circuit, which would be the home heating. Hot water I can live without, and we can boil stuff or whatever. I have barbecues to do that. But it's the keeping the pipes from freezing concept that I'm
Yeah.
kind of going for. And so I'm thinking that if I get a battery just big enough to run the air source heat pump in an emergency, I should be okay, and it shouldn't be exorbitantly expensive. I don't know, I haven't investigated, but that's sort of the thinking I'm doing. But either way, like worst case scenario, even if I don't get that, I'm no worse off than my neighbors with a gas furnace because their furnace isn't going to work either. Right. So
You can't run your gas furnace on a generator.
I mean, I don't know. You'd have to like have a hello. Yeah, the internet keeps dropping out. You'd have to have that specifically wired in to do that, and most people don't have that anyway. Like none of my neighbors have that, right?
Yes.
So it's not something that's going to put me out compared to everybody else.
No.
And it's so it's something to be investigated for sure. It's on my list.
Okay.
Well enough insulated that you barely need.
That's well, I mean, it depends. Like worst case scenario, it's like minus $1 million, and you know. But honestly, like when the ice storm hit, right? That's the big example. It was like -2 outside, right?
Yes.
So it's not that, you know. And like with my fridge and stuff, actually the fridge didn't work anyway. Yeah, you're not gonna get an ice storm if it's -30 anyway.
Correct.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it could be -30 the week after though, but still, that's
still,
you
yeah.
know, those are really edge cases, right?
This
So,
is like getting asteroid insurance, right? Like
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
could happen, but
Yeah.
is it worth worrying about? Probably not. There was another question. I lost the screen that shows me. Alan.
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations. This is fantastic. I've been using a ground source heat pump since 2007. So 15 years now on a ground source heat pump. I was also concerned at first, oh, what if power goes out? How are we going to, it's never been a problem. The house is so well insulated now that it's going to take a long time for it to freeze.
Yeah.
We do have a fireplace insert for wood if we need to heat, and that generates lots of heat. Yeah, and then also you're talking about in the meantime, before you get solar panels, you may want to consider bullfrog power as a way of greening your electricity source until you have your solar panels. Gas barbecue. Hey, I got an electric barbecue out of Canadian Tire. They're fantastic. I really recommend.
So I actually have one of those. I have one of those that I run off my car just for events.
Yeah.
Like I make hot dogs off Bionic.
Yeah.
But I prefer charcoal. It smells better.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, but I think it was Raymond was talking about a gas barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
then
does it run on 120 volt, or do you have to have a
Yep.
240 outlet? 120?
120 volts.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
Right, it's the same thing I have. Right, it's
Yeah.
the same.
And then the last concern about, if you're concerned about backup power, you could keep the gas service as the feed to a Generac generator
No.
system. If you like, in Craig's case, right? If he's nervous about that, you don't have to use a gas furnace. You could just keep the gas service as a backup power solution using a gas generator.
That's
So,
true.
but
on
that's
principle will not
pretty
do that.
rare that you would need that. Go ahead.
But yeah, thanks. The other thing I was going to say before I lost my thought. Yeah, I got nothing. Okay, carry on. I think
One more question was the what's the BTU of your air source heat pump?
2.5 ton, he said. I did check it recently, and I think it's 2.5 ton. I don't know.
2.5 ton.
Yeah.
So that's what, around 60,000 BTU?
I can get back to you. I have that on a document. Let me just see.
It's 30.
Oh, it's 12. It's 12 ton per.
12,000 per ton.
12,000 per ton. Okay, so 30,000 BTU. That's great. Yeah, we have our 2-story house uses a 50,000 BTU ground source heat pump, but that's great that you got it down to 30. That's all you need for the winter.
Correction. It looks like. Hang on. I've got the contract right here. I think it might be actually a 3 ton. Just waiting. Yeah, no,
Okay,
that's-
so
yeah,
36.
3 ton. So the Zuba system, it's a 3-ton air handler or, oh, hang on. Yeah, 3-ton modulating heat pump, Mitsubishi,
It's
18 SEER.
it is surprising to me that you had to upgrade to 200 amp service, because I'm still on a 100 amp service using a
Oh.
4-ton ground source heat pump and the electric cars and everything else electric, gas or the dryer and stoves and everything is electric.
So
But do you have electric backup? Your ground
sorry,
source, you don't need electric backup, right?
I
Yeah,
don't have
so that's the
electric
reason.
backup. So
I
ground
have
source,
15
yeah.
kilowatts of electric backup redundant heat.
I have-
So there's resistive elements in my air handler.
I have
and
that
there's-
too. I have 10,000 watts of electric backup in my
Oh.
ground source heat pump. So yes.
Because the electric backup heater is sort of what was going to make me need the 200 amp because it draws a lot.
Yeah, but that's a matter of managing it when it turns on, and you have the breakers to protect you too. So
yeah. Oh, and the other thing I just remembered what I was going to say is Darren a few years ago convinced me to buy it's a solar air heater. So I have that on the front of my house that adds 2 degrees Celsius to my house over a sunny day.
nice.
Very loudly. So in the event of an emergency, like an ice storm, I can probably keep my house above 0 with just that alone. So there's that too. And it's free.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, congratulations. This is fantastic.
Thanks.
What you've been doing. That's great.
Thanks. Art. I think Art was the next person, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've run a ground source heat pump now for 6 years, and I have 3 Tesla Powerwall batteries, which have a capacity of 40 kilowatt hours. And of course, I've got 2 EVs, and I'm really looking forward to the time we can connect our EVs as part of the home battery system. Lovely. I have 2 solar arrays, both net metering and microgrid, which power everything. And in fact, when the Dreco was on, that didn't. People were out for 3 and 4 days around here, 4 days here, and of course I was feeding them power the whole time because I had lots of extra. I'm in the midst of. I know it's a little bit backwards, but I'm getting new windows and doors put in now. That should have been the first thing I did, but it's turning out to be one of the last things. And I'm getting the triple pane double low E with argon filled, and I'm going 9 yards. I'm doing this under the City of Ottawa home ownership plan, where the house carries the loan, not the siding.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. We noticed it last winter after the windows went in, because they went in like November, and it was just like night and day. It was incredible.
We got our 60 in the ceiling, and we haven't turned our heating on yet, which is I thought was just delightful.
Yeah, I only turned it on this morning just because I wanted to see. It wasn't really necessary. Like the house was at 20, and I'm like, well, it is set for 21. So.
Anyway, I'm delighted with my ground source heat pump and the electrical system. It's just I do want to advise everyone that the energy consumption in your house somewhere between 80 and 83%, according to the literature of the average Canadian home. It goes to heating and cooling of your place. So you might want to think that you might want to go off and focus, 80% of your energy and money on the heating and cooling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Art.
Yes. Yeah, so that would be for heating of space and also water, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I put my Well, that's the thing I mentioned, that I put a timer on my hot water heater. It's heated, by the way, by the water furnace, by the ground source heat pump. And, but I got into the motherboard and put an extra cabling in and put a switch in that only allows hot water to heat 4 times a day, 7 in the morning just before shower time, and before each meal, then 10 o'clock at night. And, and that saves an awful lot of energy. I also put an extra thermal blanket around the tank, which really slows down the rate of cool down per hour.
Nice. Yeah, we're just
So,
looking at, oh, go ahead.
so Mike, if you were to buy a hot water heater like mine, which is a heat pump, air source heat pump, hot water heater, it's
Yep.
got functionality where you could schedule when it actually turns on. So you'd be able to overheat the water at night and not heat it so much during the day. That way you're using cleaner energy and cheaper energy, right?
Yeah, no, but I mean, like the normal electric water heaters can do that too. My concern is that I would be stealing heat from the furnace room, which is already kind of cold anyway. And
Yeah.
that heat that's in that furnace room came from the air source heat pump outside. So I'm like, I don't know. I just figure, and the hybrid hot water tanks are like 3 times the cost of an electric one, or more. And I'm just like, will I save enough energy over 20 years to make up the difference? And I did the math, and not quite. Not in my case. Maybe for other people, but not for us. So, and I didn't want my basement to get any colder than it already is. So, yeah. So I think we're just.
I'm with you there, Mike. I
What's
had the
that?
same thing. I had my water heater just all of a sudden died. I was taking a shower about 2 weeks ago, and I noticed I had to like turn the heat way up, and then all of a sudden I went downstairs to do the laundry, and there was like water everywhere, and I'm like, oh no, and
Yeah.
my gas hot water tank was gone, and I was it was one of the things on my list to replace, but it was like, okay, I guess I'm replacing it today, you know, and I did that. I mean, now I was in an emergency situation, and I just felt it was easier to just go to Home Depot, buy a, electric hot water tank, and you know, have it going versus spending that. And again, the same thing. It's in my basement. It's next to my office in the basement, which is already kind of cool, and I don't really want cooler.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Alan, did you have a question? Somebody put their hand up just now.
Yeah, sorry. Just a couple other quick comments then. Art, you're talking about a water furnace ground source heat pump. Mine is that too. You may want to double check where the water heating is coming from, because on mine it's actually cooling the compressor, and there's no real benefit to turning that off because it helps the compressor be more efficient. And then the other comment was for the electric heating that's built in for as a backup heating mechanism. I had that put on a separate breaker, so I can actually turn it off. And the reason for turning it off is that when there's heat demand and the initial heating burst might actually come from resistive heating rather than allowing the ground source heat pump to catch up over an hour or so. And so you may want to turn off that electric resistive heating to not come on automatically unless you really want it to come on.
So
I don't have any electric backup, and that's
Yeah, that was Mike. The electric backup was for Mike.
yeah, so in my case, actually, I talked to the guy who was installing it, and like, how does it all work? And I was really like, he showed me all the wiring, everything. And basically what the Zuba systems do now, there's a special like thermostat. They replaced my Nest with like their own Mitsubishi thing. And so what it does is the electric backup heaters are programmed to not come on until a few conditions are met, and there's sensors all over the system, like temperature sensors. And so the first one's outside and it measures the ambient air. And so that one has to be -20 or below before it starts checking. And then what it does is it'll check what's been requested from the air system and what's being delivered. And if those two disagree after half an hour at -20 or below, then it'll light up the first stage of the resistive heater and then start checking again. Right. So there's like a bit
That's
of
a good
intelligence
system.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's intelligence in the Zuba system to make sure that it's not just like lighting up the resistive heaters whenever, and it's truly backup. So it's like it has to be, all these conditions must be met before it even thinks about lighting it up, and it gives the outside unit a half an hour to meet the request before it decides to like turn something on. So
Cool.
yeah. Oh, there's a question in here from Phil.
So I'm also on a similar journey. I just had the audits done, and I need to proceed. I did a lot of some of the initial stuff years ago anyways, but where my direct question is, I'm probably gonna go to a heat pump also. You went air source.
Yeah.
Some people are going ground source. We discussed that at a previous meeting.
Yes.
Can we do ground source in Ottawa? That's the first question. In a residential area.
Depends.
I think it's too expensive.
Probably no.
practically, I think.
Depends on where you live in the city, but probably no. If you're urban.
Yeah, so Mike, I think if you look at the experience that Art has had,
Yeah.
he was, even though he's in a condo with, it's sort of like rural housing, he was able to do it. Now the problem is the cost, right? So the cost is about $30,000 for the.
Yep. Art also lives he's outside of the urban boundary, right? So
yeah.
That has a factor, right? Because the urban boundary within the city of Ottawa, like the city of Ottawa is huge. It goes all the way to Arnprior.
Right.
But we have an urban boundary, and within
Right.
the urban boundary, like they have other laws, like you're not allowed to have chickens,
Right.
right? And I'm drilling for a heat pump is one of those prohibited, because they
Well,
want to
I'm
have,
Canada.
they reserve the right to like have subways or I don't know stuff.
I'm in Canada, and that's.
I
right
didn't
over
ask
the
anyone
street.
in the city whether I could do a ground source heat pump or not. I just did it.
Yeah. But I like in Alta Vista, I asked, and they don't do ground source heat pumps in Alta Vista. Like they're like, no, you're not allowed to drill.
So Alan, as he was just saying there, he's in Canada, and he was able to do it, right?
Yeah,
So
Beaverbrook area, and I'm about a half a kilometer walk to where the new LRT will be when it comes.
Nice.
But it's not going to be underground when it comes, right? So.
Yeah. So they won't let me do it in Alta Vista. I checked, and even then it was too expensive anyway, from what I saw.
So one interesting development related to that is that there's some projects that are being spun up to do district heating, which may use ground source for the heating and cooling, but so it'll do a similar thing, right? The issue with the air source heat pumps is that when it gets really cold, well, the air is cold, so it's hard to get any heat out of it. So, but if you're doing ground source, then the problem is not anywhere near as severe because the ground stays more or less the same temperature all year round, right?
I mean, so the Zuba specs, right? So the system I bought, it's new technology. Mitsubishi's been building these things for decades, and this is the latest generation. And so it has 100% ability to deliver the heat down to -20, right?
Mhm.
Which is pretty impressive. And then -25, it's 80%, right? So it's only below -25 that it starts to, peter out.
Yeah.
And that's thermometer temperature. That's not wind chill, right? So
Yeah. So one thing to note, Mike, is actually you put a comment somewhere on Facebook about that too. But when you say 100% up to -20, it's actually more than 100%. It's really about 300%, right? Compared to resistive heating. So
it's
so
100% of the capacity of the heat pump to deliver what you demand.
But you're still a lot more. You're even at -25. You're still a lot more efficient than resistive heating, right? So that's why I wanted to forego the backup, but apparently that's not recommended. So
from the people that I've spoken to with Zubas that have them, the previous generation, most of them have told me they've never used the backup heat. Like it just never. Because the number of days in Ottawa where it's actually -25 or below, it's like 3 days a year, right? Because it's like wind chill doesn't count.
Yeah, and what you do is you should do number of hours below 25. You know,
Yeah.
because in real cold days, you might get 4 or 5 hours at
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think Dan and then Ruth. Oh, Dan. Yeah, Dan, you've been up.
Yeah. The first, a couple of comments. First comment is, I'm so happy to be involved in this group. You guys are early adopters, and really, really a fantastic group to belong to. Congratulations. You know, congratulations, Mike. Raymond, you're on this journey already too, and Craig is. I've assisted with you guys, and I'm at about 50 studies now within the city, and I'm finding all sorts of pitfalls. Um, Mike, you might be challenged on your overall roof area. That
Yep.
might to have enough solar to go to net zero.
Yeah. Yeah. My plan is to build a solar pergola if I need more.
Sure.
So we'll see. It's to be determined. Yeah, but I'm aware that I might not have enough. And then I think the net metering also limits how much you can do as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
OREC is another alternative to Bullfrog, and I like OREC better because you're an owner with OREC as opposed to Bullfrog where you're just a client. And
I'm both.
and thanks for mentioning that, Alan. I don't know you very well. I'd like to follow up a little bit on the ground source heat pump because I'm not finding a reasonably priced ground source heat pump. I mean, Arts Contractor is the best that I've found so far, but it's still pretty expensive. So I'm not finding much luck there. Um, and then the final thing is, one of my clients, Daniel Koch, he was handed the wrench when to turn off the gas line. So Raymond and Mike, you might like to have that privilege and grab the
Oh,
wrench and turn off the gas line. Get the contractor to allow you to do that. It's a
that'd
nice
be
privilege.
amazing. Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to do that. Thanks, Dan. Ruth, I think you're the last question, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just wondered, you said something about it's restricted to do the ground source. Where do you look up where it is and isn't? I'm in Stittsville.
Yeah, you might be okay out in Stittsville. I tried looking for it in the city bylaws and I didn't find anything. But when I talked to contractors about heat pumps, they all told me, like every contractor I spoke to is like, you have to do air source in Alta Vista, you can't do ground source. Because to ground source, you either need a lot of space, like horizontally, or you need a lot of depth, right? It's like you pick one. And so in Alta Vista, I don't have space or depth, apparently. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, so I'll just do a brief EVX update. So I haven't got complete numbers from the weekend yet, but at this point we are including the weekend, the portion that lands on, we are at 664 test drives. That's an estimate, so they haven't cleaned up the numbers for the weekend, but it might turn out to be a bit higher than that. And excluding Saturday, we're at 2621 in-person engagements at the booth. I would expect Saturday would have added, excuse me, a considerable amount of extra engagements, given that the event had a very large audience. We've attended 20 community events. We have one more to come. So the Museum of Science and Technology. We'll talk about that a bit later when we look at future events. We're still working on booking some workplace events for the fall. So if you do have some leads on that, we're still looking for leads. It seems to be a bit difficult for us to get businesses interested in doing things of this nature. So anyways, but we will be doing those. Those will be during the day work days more than likely. So so we realize that there's a bunch of you that excuse me, won't be able to participate, but we'll see. We'll probably do a call out anyways for people who are available, right? So Mike, that's about it for that. I'll talk about the other show on the weekend when we talk about past events. So do you want to go to the news?
Yeah, the
I have a-
news. Back in the light.
About shows. Just talking about shows. I was in Edmonton on the weekend, and they had the Edmonton EVCO, which was a nice surprise to see that going on while I was there. So they had a full 2-day event at the Edmonton Exposition Center.
Did they do test drives there?
They did. Plug and Drive was actually there. Ron, I don't know if you remember Ron from Plug and Drive. He was there. They did, I think, over 80 test drives a day.
Cool.
And they had 3. They had a Volvo of the XC40, I think, and a Bolt and a Ioniq 5 for test drives.
Cool.
So that was
Nice.
nice to see that going on. They had 3 Lightnings in the building on display. They had giant electric bus from Edmonton Transit on display. It was actually the electric and hydrogen expo. They had 2 hydrogen buses outside, not inside. and the only other hydrogen car was a Toyota Mirai. But everything else was electric, and it was well attended. They had over 3,000 people a day. It was really well done.
Cool.
Nice. All right. Thanks. So there's a lot of Ford news this week or this month. So bear with me a little bit. And we'll start off with Ontario news. So Ford is going to be making a new truck, which will be on the next slide. So teaser. It will exist along with the F-150 Lightning. So it's not a replacement for the F-150 Lightning. It's something in addition to. But they're also going to be making an EV Explorer, they announced. And that will come out next year, or not next year, 2024, but pre-orders start next year. So according to Automotive News, which is the old industry rag from Detroit, the Explorer will be produced in Oakville, Ontario by the end of next year. And actually, Oakville is being converted to an EV-only facility. So that's pretty cool. So a bunch of EVs will start being made there. Currently, what's made in Oakville, I read this and I totally forget what they make there, but they're not fun, nice, cool cars. So whatever. They're gas cars and they're going to die. So great. CEO Jim Farley. Yes, he is Chris Farley's brother, if you were wondering. They're brothers. I didn't know that, but there you go. Has also hinted that there will be an electric Bronco and Maverick, which I think would be dope. The Maverick, it's a little pickup.
It's the Ranger.
It's like the old Ranger. You know how the Ranger used to be like little, and now it's like so it's the littler one now.
So Mike,
Nothing.
you won't be able to call it the Exploder anymore.
I know, right? So sad. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, so Ford Ranger and Ford Maverick. So this is I don't know where they got this picture, but this is Motor Trend has this picture. So Ford has filed trademarks for Lightning and Thunder in relation to the Maverick and the F-150 and the Ranger. So it looks like Lightning will be their truck electric brand, like their electric truck brand will be Lightning. And Thunder, which I think is actually really clever. Nobody's really sure, but it could be performance or it could be a plug-in hybrid version. We're not sure, but they've registered both names. So Lightning and Thunder, there will be some sort of fun play on words, which is actually way better marketing. Chevy, take notes. Bolt and Volt, I'm looking at you. All right. And Silverado, what?
Yeah,
What?
they just
Whatever.
kept the Silverado name.
Whatever. So their new next-gen pickup, which will be made in a new facility in Tennessee, which I will talk to about in the next slide, will be produced alongside the F-150 Lightning in 2025 in Tennessee. The Ranger is supposed to come at $35,000 US, so it will be a very affordable electric pickup truck. So this is what we need. Next slide, please. So speaking of new things, so the next slide will be the one with the thing in Tennessee. They've also unveiled, Sam, an all-new electric van.
What do you want to know about it?
Oh, you know everything, do you?
Research.
Transit Custom Work Van, which actually comes in a diesel, a plug-in hybrid that we don't care about. It's the EV one that we care about. It has a 74 kilowatt-hour battery, which is good. Gives it almost 400 kilometer range, which should be enough for Sam.
The E-Transit Connect is supposed to have 14.
Well, there you go. But this will be cheaper probably. And it's supposed to charge at 125 kilowatts, which is meh, whatever. You can talk to a contractor to see if that matters. I don't know. It might.
They're plugged overnight.
Whatever, they're plugged overnight, he says, so it's fine. It'll also be capable of vehicle to X. So 2.3 kilowatts of electricity off board to power tools and whatnot. So add that to the list of things that can power your house in a blackout. And that will start next year. So sales start next year, and that's what it looks like. The charge port's on the front there. It's kind of a weird spot, but whatever. And that's what it looks like. Next slide, please. So more Ford. The Blue Oval City, which I guess, whatever. They're good at marketing in some departments, and then I guess sometimes they're not. But they broke ground this month. They broke ground on Blue Oval City, which is their brand new, what Tesla would call a gigafactory. They are spending real money, $5.6 billion on this facility. It is going to occupy 15 square kilometers or 6 square miles of land and will employ 6,000 people in Stanton, Tennessee. It is a joint venture it's going to be a vehicle factory, and then they have a joint venture with SK Innovations to produce battery cells on site as well. And they're going to make 43 gigawatt hours per year of batteries at that location. SK Innovations is the same company that currently powers the Ioniq 5 and then the EV6 and the GV60 and all the Kia's, Hyundai stuff. If you're wondering, pretty good cars, I think. Cool cars. SK Innovations also, this isn't their only gig in the US. They are also investing an additional $5.8 billion of their money into 2 more gigafactories, each producing 43 gigawatt hours per year in Kentucky, in Glendale, Kentucky. So they were going to do a total of 86 gigawatt hours of production in Glendale, Kentucky as well. So that's, over $11 billion of investment here in EV stuff. And that's going to be, all 3 will be online by 2025. So in the next 3 years, there's going to be a crap ton of batteries being made for Ford. And a total of 129 gigawatt hours by 2025 is what they're aiming for out of the 3 factories combined, which is a lot. And that's good. And I'm calling them gigafactories because whatever, it's a cool name. Good job, Elon Musk, on that marketing. Next.
Okay, just quick question. Those parking lots. The parking lots in that picture, they look like they're all shaded with solar panels and.
Yeah, there's not a lot of details. What they've done right now is they had a whole bunch of stats on how much concrete they poured. And there's like lots of cool pictures of them building things. It looks a lot like when, Tesla built the Gigafactory in Berlin or whatever. It's the same kind of stage right now where they're just construction. But it's unclear whether those are just canopies or whether they're solar canopies. I would hope they're solar. I think their plan is to basically just make everything solar. So
yeah, that'd be nice. Cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising that Tesla in their new facilities, they don't have that type of canopy, right? Nikola, not that Nikola's a model to look at for some other things, but a lot of their parking actually has canopies already. So it's wasted space otherwise, right?
Yeah, but the cool thing is 3 factories by 2025, so in 3 years and running. All right, so now we're on to GM. So Ford's next competitor, I guess. Hummer EV, if you were hoping to buy a Hummer EV, I'm sorry, they are sold out. I know, everyone's disappointed. They've filled up their 90,000 order slots. And so if you are one of the 90,000 people that have ordered a Hummer EV for $120,000, you might be waiting until 2024. That's why they closed the books, is because they are currently backlogged to 2024. And through the end of June, they only made 372 vehicles, so they've got a bit of work to do to catch up. They are making them at their Factory 0 in Michigan. So the order book will reopen in the future when they, get on top of the 90,000 they owe people already. So there you go. There's a quote there from the CEO or whatever, marketing dude. All right, so again this month, another vehicle was announced, Chevy Equinox EV, which will probably be the most affordable EV in Canada. Starting price in Canadian dollars on their website, you can go look at it right now, $35,000 for all electric SUV, 480 kilometer range, charging, I misspelled charging, oh well, up to 150 kilowatts. Look, I was doing a lot of stuff at this. 0 to 100 at a respectable 6 seconds, so it's slower than the Ioniq and the EV6, but it's fine. 1,500 pounds towing, it's Ultium, so it's the new thing. And the first one is available for delivery fall 2023. That's now. We're in fall right now. So any day now, somebody will be
No,
taking home brand new.
No.
No.
2023, 1 year from
Oh
now.
my God, for 2022. I guess we
Yeah.
have time for anything. It's okay.
But it's
Next year.
2023
Fall
model
next
year.
Yeah, I don't know. It's late. It's been a long weekend. Yeah, so next year, fall. So never mind. Yeah, ignore me. Next.
So Mike,
Yes.
is that actually
What it looks like?
480 kilometers for the 35,000, or is it going to be a higher trim level?
Probably a higher trim. I would put my money on. Yeah, the specs aren't that easy to come by.
Right.
They have some on the website, but they're sort of optimistic, and it's like email us for more. Right. All right. So GM isn't investing billions like Ford. They're investing $750 million though. That's not too bad. In Ohio, and this is going to produce drive units. So gas motors are gone, electric motors are in. It's the new hotness. They're converting their Toledo, Ohio drive facility, propulsion system facility into electric drive to build electric drive for the Hummer, the Sierra, and the Silverado at that facility. So they're going to be upgrading a stamping unit in Indiana as well to support those trucks as well. So GM's also investing big money. So continuing with GM, sorry for the delay. So GM is working on a circular supply chain for the battery ecosystem. So they've announced this month that they're investing in Lithion, which is a cool name, I think, recycling to support their batteries. Now, the problem is right now, and I'll talk about this later with actually Nissan, there aren't really a lot of batteries floating around to be recycled at the moment. But GM is concerned about supply chains. They are still tight after the pandemic. And so they're basically trying to put money into anything that produces raw materials for them to make cars, including battery recycling. So this is good. They will start doing that. So hopefully this becomes a thing. But for now, the feedstock isn't really there. It's just for the stuff they throw out from the manufacturing defects or whatever. But anyway, next slide, please. So watch that space. All right, now we're on to Jeep. Finally, an EV that I've been waiting for years, probably. It's the brother of the Wrangler, is what they're calling it, the Jeep Recon. And oh my God, the Jeep people are so upset. You have no idea. It's bananas. But they've revealed 2 Jeeps for North America and a third one for Europe that I'm not going to talk about because it doesn't matter for us. The first one is the Recon, and it's gonna sort of do the same job as the Wrangler, but probably better because it has, modern technology like no leaf springs. It has a coilover spring suspension instead of leaf springs like an ox cart. It also doesn't have a solid axle, which Jeep people are upset about, but it's like, guys, like it's not a wagon from like the medieval times either. So whatever, it's built on the Stella Large platform. And what's hilarious is if you go on YouTube and like look up Jeep Recon and then watch the Jeep people try and like figure out what this thing is, it's hilarious because they're like, we don't know what the specs are. And it's like, well, if you look at the Stella Large platform, like those specs were published a year ago. And so you can sort of see. So it'll be a decent range, like 500, 600 kilometer range, probably 500 in this case because it's a box on wheels. But there are basic specs you can go look up for Stella Large platform because those are known. So you know the horsepower, you know the battery size, it's going to be a lot. I didn't write them down because I didn't have enough space and whatever. The other thing they announced is the electric Wagoneer, which will be sort of, they're not saying replace the Grand Cherokee, but they're kind of hinting, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like this is what's going to fill that niche as an electric vehicle. They kind of want to, it's interesting what they're doing. They're sort of doing EV things in parallel to their gas things, and I guess they want to see which one floats. We'll see. Anyway, the specs for that have not been announced. Neither has pricing for anything. So wait and see, but they are rendered and coming. So that's pretty cool. And yes, the windows come off and the doors come off and the roof comes off and all the Jeep things. And you can put a winch and all the fun stuff to do rock crawling things. Next slide, please. Okay, so Electrify America / Canada announced a couple weeks ago, they announced that they're going to upgrade their signage. One of the problems that they've always had is that you never know what charging unit you're using because you have to understand how to decipher the serial number at the top of the thing. So they're going to fix that with a big number. So it'll be like number 1, which is smart. The other thing they're going to do, because people are confused by which charger they're actually plugging into, is they're going to properly label them. So they've now sort of simplified everything. It's going to be 3 types of charger. There's going to be CHAdeMO, which is the slow, crappy one for the Leaf. There's going to be ultra fast, which I guess, sure, they could have just called it fast. And then hyper fast for the cool cars that can do 350, like, yeah, my car and Sam's car and the Porsche Taycans. So whatever. The other thing they're doing is they're upgrading stations. So Electrify America and presumably Electrify Canada had some bad charging units. I don't know if anybody's gone to an EC charger recently, but the ABB units in particular, which are the ones that they sort of launched with everywhere, where they have the big square opening at the top and green lights inside. So those ABB units are kind of notoriously unreliable. So Electrify America and Canada has decided to partner with a completely different company and build their own from scratch. So they now have this custom built in-house Electrify America / Canada charger. It only has 1 charging cord per unit instead of 2.
Which you can't use 2 anyway.
Which you can't use 2 anyway, so that will reduce complexity and confusion. The other thing is what the early sites that they've been installing in the US, so they've been upgrading American locations already. They've already started doing this as of last week. And they've been replacing 150 kilowatt units with these new ones that are all 350 kilowatts. And they actually paint the ground now. So there's like a green perimeter around the charging station that's painted green saying, you know, electric vehicles only. And then each spot has the charge speed written on the pavement as well. So each parking spot. So it looks really cool. And it looks like they might be actually upgrading all of their chargers to 350, potentially, maybe 150. We'll see. They do keep one of the older ABB units around for the CHAdeMO. So those are still going to be around. But the majority of their new chargers and the old ones that we're currently hearing being replaced will be these new ones. And they've actually said as a company at Fully Charged Live out last week or the week before in the US, Electrify America said that they're actually rolling these out as chargers break. They're not repairing them. They don't have spares for these ABB units. They're just going to rip them out and stick in the new ones.
So we're getting new ones in Ottawa soon.
So that means we might get new ones in Ottawa soon because they are broken, some of them. 2 of them, I think,
The
right?
350 though.
The 350 is always broken here. Yes,
So in Ottawa, we only have it at Coventry Road, right?
for now. They're actually adding, so they have a plan to add, if you go to their website, they have a map of Canada. It's not very detailed, but if you know geography pretty well, you can figure out where they're going to put the chargers. So they're adding 2 more locations in the National Capital Region. One of them looks like it's going to be out in Canada-ish, and the other one looks like Orleans, based on where the dots are on the blobs. And then they're going to go up Highway 17 towards North Bay. So there's going to be one in Pembroke or Petawawa. Those are close enough on the map that you can't really tell. But they're going to do the 17 all the way to Thunder Bay. So you go on their website, they have the map, and you can sort of figure out where the chargers are going to go. So they will be doing that by the end of this year is what they were saying, but I think we're running out of years, so who knows? Maybe next year, probably next year. So that's cool. Oh, and the other thing is they will also be starting to deploy on-site battery storage at their stations, and this is to buffer the grid and to give redundancy in case of blackouts. So they are doing this for 150 stations for now, and they will start rolling that out more and more. And that's because grid connections are typically very limited. And if they're going to be rolling out 350 everywhere, they're not going to have the pipes from the hydro companies to do that. So they're going to use a buffer battery system to buffer that and basically build up the charge with the grid connection all the time and then dump it at the 350 volt chargers or 350 kilowatt chargers as cars come. So that is really cool too. So that's how they're going to manage the 350 thing from 150. So that's neat. And they'll work in blackouts too, apparently, until they run out. So that's cool. Next slide.
Quick question about the costs.
The costs.
Yeah,
So they didn't mention any charges and changes in pricing. Sorry, go ahead.
right now, pricing is based on what the unit is capable of and not what you're drawing. So if you have a Chevy Bolt like I do, which only draws 43 kilowatt, I don't want to pay the
Yes.
350 rates. I want to pay the 50 rates, not the.
Yes. So if you go to their app, and I'll just do that now because I noticed this last night, there are now 2 tiers of pricing. There is the 0 to 350 tier, and there's the 0 to 50 tier, and that's it. There's no 150 tier anymore.
So that's the pricing based on draw, not based on.
It's based on the charger, but since I think all
Oh.
the chargers are going to 350, it's going to be moot. But they don't have a tier for like 150 kilowatts anymore. So you're either 50 at the cheaper price or at the higher price for the faster
Okay.
charger.
So even with the 150, I'd still be paying 3 times more than I need to. All
Probably,
right.
yeah, probably, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you'd want to connect to the Chatamo one because the Chatamo one will have a CCS as well. It's the same ABB that they currently
Okay.
use. So it'll be a 50 kilowatt Chatamo, and I think it's 50 kilowatt CCS on that one unit, and then everything else is 150 or 350.
1 to 90.
1 to 90. No,
1
they.
to 350.
I was just looking at it last night, and they dropped the 1 to 90 price. It's gone.
Okay, she's just logged.
Okay.
Re-logged in.
Cool.
And they have 1 to 90 or 1 to 350.
Okay, cool. So
So hopefully also the regulations will be changed so that they could charge by the kilowatt hour, right?
yeah,
So
that
you
was
may
announced.
have noticed in the US there are many locations where they've already gone to that on a Tesla supercharger network in particular.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully that's coming through this year as well because that was announced last month. So yeah. So the next thing is OC Transpo, and I was really nervous when I read the headline of this story here. They're rethinking the bus procurement, the e-bus that we fought so hard for them to do. But it turns out what has happened is the Auditor General was basically saying like OC Transpo doesn't know what it's doing. You're better off to just attach yourself muckle on to somebody else who does know what they're doing. And so OC Transpo is basically going to attach itself to TTC. So you're going to let TTC do all the competitive process and figure out what the best bus is. And then we're going to add 26 more to their order and get our buses too. And that should speed things up, which is hopefully what will happen.
Yeah,
Yes,
so this is a common practice that they've been using for years for the diesel buses, right? So actually this will save them time.
Yep.
And that means we should be able to get buses sooner.
Right, and so they've announced that they're basically going to add 26 buses by the end of next year, which is great. And they want to have 450 by 2027. So this should happen very quickly in the next year. So that's good. I was a little nervous at first because I was like, oh no, they're going to stop buying buses, but no, we're good. So nothing to see here.
This is actually, it's actually good news because then they're going to have a reasonable RFP and all that. And right, they're not doing their own, right? So
I took this picture when I was trapped at Herdman because my local bus only goes every half an hour, which is criminally inhuman. And if you miss it by 1 minute, then you're stuck there for 29 minutes. So while I was waiting at Herdman, as my bus went away, I took a picture of an electric bus because what else are you going to do? Herdman sucks.
cool picture.
Thank you, Turdman. Nikola has recalled the Tray electric bus or truck, sorry. And now we know how many they built, 93. So they built 93 battery electric trucks. Their original goal was to have 20,000 units delivered by the first quarter of next year. So they are running out of time to hit that number. According to NISTA, the US safety agency, there's an issue with the seat belts. They were not installed correctly. They could have been cross-threaded, and so they sent out a recall. The thing about Nikola, so Nikola talked a big game way back when about hydrogen trucks and all that, and how they had all this like cool technology or whatever. Turns out what they're doing is they're just assembling trucks. So they get the powertrains, like the bottom half of the truck comes from Proterra. So Proterra handles the batteries and motors and everything. And then EVCO, which is a European truck maker, gives them the gliders is what they're called. It's like the top part of the truck, the cab. And so Proterra or Nikola just puts the two together and then calls it their truck. So there you go. So they've only made 93 so far. They've had some issues, as everyone else has.
But this recall is EVCO's fault, right? It's not really Nikola's fault, but still.
It's not clear, right? So EVCO, it wasn't clear whether it was Nikola not following EVCO's instructions or whether EVCO did it in their factory, because My understanding is that EVCO sends them like parts, and then Nikola assembles them. So it's unclear. It wasn't clear in what I was reading who was at fault here. Just that EVCO was like, this is the torque specification, and these weren't done properly. So anyway.
Yeah, if you look at the videos of their plant there, you could see that they actually get full cabs already built.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd be thinking it's EVCO that's the problem. But anyways, regardless.
Awesome. Regardless,
yeah.
not great for Nikola, but whatever. It's not hydrogen, so there you go. That's something. Yeah, and Proterra powertrains are great. So carry on. Next. Cool. Okay, so this is actually really cool. Toronto, and I say Greater Montreal because I'm pretty sure nobody knows where that suburb of Montreal is, Varennes. But it's a suburb of Montreal. Some people do. Sam knows where it is. I didn't. But anyway, Toronto is buying 2 pumper trucks, like you see pictured there. These are $2 million a piece, which is about twice the cost of a diesel pumper truck. So they are more expensive, but these are North American style trucks. So they have a 327 kilowatt hour battery, automotive grade. So think like Tesla Pack or Proterra or whatever. And they are unlike the one that Brampton bought a couple months ago. We talked about that was a European style fire truck. These are, big boy North American ones. They're larger and more capable and whatever. So that's cool. So Toronto is putting 2 of them into service. Montreal is getting a different kind of truck. It looks similar. It's more of a, it's called a rescue deacon. So it's, I don't know, it has like air and stuff in it. Like for breathing and whatever. So it's a different kind of truck. It's slightly larger, like command and control almost, it sounded like. Calgary is now looking at electric fire trucks. Yep, the oil patch area is looking at electric fire trucks.
Will they have the diesel generator like the other?
Yes, so they will have a diesel backup generator if everything goes to hell. But the idea is that these trucks will be all electric for the mission that they need it for. And then if there's a grid outage and they still have to be on scene for, for long periods of time, they can turn on, there's a diesel backup generator that will continue to keep everything pumping and actually charge the truck if they need to too. So it does have diesel backup, but these are pure electric. They'll operate in electric only mode most of the time is the idea. So Ottawa. Yeah.
Is Mitchell, is Mitchell on the call?
There's fire trucks.
I didn't see him.
The fire trucks now, Mitchell. All right, next. Okay, so here's the battery. We're back to battery recycling a little bit. And I thought this was interesting. This is my ghetto sled in my driveway. So the marketing director in the UK, Nick Thomas, told Forbes that almost all of the EV batteries we've ever made, we being Nissan, are still in cars. And we've been selling cars for 12 years. And yeah, this is my car. It's 10 years old and my battery is very much still in that car. It's not a very great battery, but it's still in there. So there was always this FUD out there about how you'll have to replace the batteries in EVs after whatever. And like, what are you going to do when all these EV batteries die in the car after 3 years or whatever nonsense is out there, right? So clearly that is not happening. There's not a large stock of batteries in need of repurposing at the moment, and they've been out on the market for 12 years now. And Nissan actually wants to use these for stationary storage. Like they have plans for all these batteries. So I know the minimum price for my car is $5,000 because that's what Nissan will pay me to take the battery out of it and use it again. And he went on to say that taking the battery out of an electric car and putting a new battery in is not a viable proposition. It's more sustainable to take the battery pack out of the car after 20 years as is, recycle the car, reuse the battery as it is in a complete set. And then you stick them on a rack in a shipping container and attach it to a solar farm for another 20 years. And then after 40 years, then you recycle the battery, right? So this whole thinking about, having to replace these batteries and they'll end up in landfills and all that nonsense is completely bunk. And this is the car company telling you about that. Back to the fire truck. Everyone.
Yeah,
likes
so
fire trucks.
sorry about that. I was taking some dust off my screen. Anyways, but I did want to comment on this. So you guys probably all know that the Leaf is the car that's got the most checkered battery history, if I could put it that way. Nevertheless, they're saying that the vast majority of their batteries are still operating in cars, right?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
means that the other car batteries are doing better. So
Exactly. These are the canary in the coal mine batteries, right?
yes.
And they're still going strong. The only ones they've recycled to date are the ones that have been in wrecks, pretty much, or defective for some reason, like mechanically defective. So yeah, that's because we're too poor to buy new cars.
I was just talking to somebody at Nissan on the weekend at that Edmonton EVCO. They were showing the 2023 Nissan Leaf, and she was proudly describing how it's a passive cooling system in the Nissan Leaf. Proudly. And I thought, wow, you guys
Did you ask her
really
about the
just
new
don't
paint
get
color?
it. No, I didn't ask about paint color, no.
Or the new rims? They got new rims too. Like, ooh la la. Yeah, you know, real upgrades there, right? Still using Chatamo. Oh boy.
Just a follow-on point on that.
Yeah.
My Leaf, 4 years old, 2018. Leaf Swipe Pro says still at 97%.
Nice.
So
I'm at 70. No, yeah, so 60 something percent, 66-ish. Yeah.
So I think I read an article, I never found it, but it was that the chemistry was slightly changed in the Gen 2s.
Possibly.
And they expect it to last longer. And so far, it's just.
Yeah, they're like lizard packs or something. They changed the name. Yeah. Dan, did you have a question? No? He's gone? Okay. So Tesla.
Sorry, Mike. I kind of did. Does it make sense to, like your older Leaf, does it make sense to put in the larger battery? You would have had a, what, 24 kilowatt hour?
Yeah, I have 24 kilowatt hours. I looked into that, and it's worth, like, doing that would cost more than the car is worth. So economically, it's not really viable. It's cheaper to just buy another Leaf, like a slightly newer vintage Leaf, and just drive that instead. And the packs that they do put in are still Leaf packs, so they're still passively cooled and still degrade, and they're still used, right? So they're still used packs that they put in. They're not getting new build Leaf packs. So I would still, like, after 5 years, be stuck with the same exact situation where I'd have to spend another, you know, $13,000, $20,000 to get another pack put in. So it's kind of like it's not worth it. I mean, a 10-year-old car starts making weird noises, right? The suspension and everything. And so
Yeah.
at this point, it's like,
You up and keep driving.
right, we'll drive it for another 5 years, drive it into the ground until something falls off or whatever, and then probably buy another car that's, you know, $13,000, just a whole car, right? So yeah.
Oh, good.
It'll be out of 2012. Yeah, no worries. All right, so Tesla expects thousands of robots to work in its factories. So if you've ever watched iRobot, that's a little terrifying. They've redeployed engineers, so Raymond's going to love this. They redeployed engineers from their self-driving thing to help make their robots happen. So that's definitely a wise use of resources. So they're going to have an AI day. We'll find out more on the 30th. So what is today at 26? So 4 more days.
It's Friday.
It's Friday this week. Okay, we'll find out on Friday. The idea, the thinking right now is that they will reveal a working Optimus subprime. Last time they had their AI day, they had Grimes in a robot suit pretending to be a robot, which fooled people for like 30 seconds, and then she started dancing, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's nonsense. So hopefully they have an actual working robot this time. But yeah, they've assigned engineers, reassigned them from full self-driving, which I should remind you is not fully baked yet, to do the robot thing so that they can lay off people, I guess, to make cars. And they're also hiring programmers, and that's how we know that they're going to do thousands, because the ads on LinkedIn for programmers for these positions to program the robots mention that they want thousands of humanoid robots working in their factories, and that you as a programmer will get to see your software at work on the factory on thousands of bots that will absolutely not turn evil and try and kill us all. Or he promises, hopefully. Okay, next. We're into the Tesla corner now. So if you've been waiting for the CCS Type 1 adapter, it is now available on the Tesla website. Go buy it. Run, don't walk. It's $325, which I'm pretty sure is cheaper than the one from Korea. that my dad may or may not have bought. It supports up to 250.
It is.
It is cheaper. There you go. See, patience is a virtue. So it supports up to 250 kilowatts. Not all Tesla vehicles are supported, however, but they are saying check back in 2023 because they have to figure some stuff out still. But there's a checker on the website. So when you go to purchase it, you have to log in and then it'll check your car and make sure it's capable of supporting the CCS adapter.
You can actually do it yourself on the, if you go into more information on your car, it will actually tell you if the CCS adapter is supported.
There you go. And they were in stock this afternoon when I looked to get this picture. So order away, people. And then you can use Electrify Canada and be cool like me. Please don't, because you have Tesla. Go away. Do your own thing. We want our Electrify Canada for ourselves. Next slide, please.
I tried using it, the Electrify Canada, the 350 watt one, and I got 33 kilowatts.
Was it at Coventry? That one's broken. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that
exactly.
one doesn't. Hopefully they'll get replaced.
I've been driving Tesla for 2.5 years. I've never had a broken station before in Tesla.
Awesome.
They maintain.
They maintain them. And hopefully Electrify Canada will too. All right, so Tesla semis are spotted in the wild. They are on the back of flatbeds going to places unknown, presumably customers, because they're in delivery mode. They were supposed to hit the market in 2019, as we all know, and then COVID and delays and Tesla time happened. They were actually, earlier this year, they were saying that they expect deliveries to start in 2023. And now they've confirmed they're happening early. So by the end of this year, people like PepsiCo and Hostess, I think, were one of the companies that ordered a crap ton, and Walmart will start getting their Tesla Tesla semi trucks. So the two trucks that have been spotted were reported on Twitter and Reddit, of course, by random people driving on highways. And one of the trucks was in Kentucky and the other one was in Arizona. And those are very far away from Nevada, where they are currently in operation, shuttling parts between Nevada and Fremont for Tesla, right? Tesla's using their own trucks to do their own stuff. So these are customer trucks going to customers, which is very exciting because finally it's happening. Yay. Although we should be still using electric trains for everything. So whatever. Next. All right. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed, maintaining the buyer's guide, I kind of noticed Tesla wait times are starting to drop, and it was random and kind of concerning for a second. But it's not because of lower demand. So if somebody's like, oh, well, nobody wants Teslas, they're running out like, look at this, the wait times are dropping. Nope, that's not why. It's not because people are not wanting Teslas. In fact, demand is increasing still. It's because of the way Tesla operates, right? So everyone kind of knows Tesla is a direct sales model retailer. They don't have car lots full of cars. They sort of deliver them as they get them, right? And so what happens is that you get a discrepancy between certain models, like one model is more popular than other models, right? And so there's a lot of demand for something, and then the factory can only produce so much of a thing. And so you get this mismatch between demand and supply, basically. So they've been working on fixing that and getting production up and running in like Giga Texas, for example, and stuff. So now that production is starting to stabilize in a lot of places, demand is meeting supply now, and so wait times are dropping, basically. So it's all sort of nerdy supply chain stuff that's causing this drop in wait times. But this is a win for everybody because if you want a Tesla, you want a Tesla quickly. That's getting more and more real now. So that's cool. Next slide. I think that's it for us. Maybe one more. That's it.
Nope, that was it. So by the way, Mike, one thing about the Tesla demand is, so these drops are in the US as well as Canada, are they?
Yeah, from what I could tell.
Okay, because I would expect the lead times to drop dramatically in Canada because of the IRA, because the subsidy will only be available next year for Teslas. So a lot of people will be delaying their deliveries until next year in the US. So we've seen some people on Facebook reporting they got their cars within 2 weeks in Canada.
The US, this was happening in the US as well, so it's not necessarily because of IRA. Maybe some of Canada's shortening times are because of that, but For the US part, it's because they're matching supply and demand better.
Okay, so any questions or comments about the news before you go to past events?
Yeah,
Sure. Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead.
yeah. Just I can attest to that. I put in the chat. I ordered a Model Y. It was early December. Picked it up a month ago now, so it's really coming along.
Mm-hmm. Cool, good. And actually, you know, if there is if there is a an issue with demand, what we should be able to see is a drop in prices, right? So Teslas have increased significantly in the last year. So I'm hoping that as production catches up to demand, that they'll start dropping the prices and introducing things like the rear-wheel drive version of the Model Y, which would be considerably more affordable than the all-wheel drive version. So that's all goodness for the adoption of EVs, right?
Yeah, they've increased the price for a Model Y about $15,000 over the last 12 months. So
yeah,
they're not angels.
No. Well, they're you know, if you're selling all of them anyways, you might as well charge more for them if people are going to buy them, right? So it makes business sense. Cool. So let's talk.
What's a
Go
better
ahead.
system to have the Hyundai, Kia, where you have 3-year wait lists, or to have the Tesla where you have you charge $15,000 more? I mean, I think it's actually probably smarter to charge $15,000 more, use the money to build another gigafactory, and then eventually when you can bring the prices down.
Yeah, so for the Hyundai and Kia and other manufacturers out there, they tend to do they're still on the old model where they change the price once a year with a new model year, right? So Tesla doesn't do that. So you know, I'm sure that Kia and Hyundai would be happy to have increased the prices to take advantage of it, but they don't. That's not the way they operate, right? So, anyways, regardless. Hopefully we'll get more cars and these problems will disappear over the next couple of years. So reach out. Past events, reaching outside of the bubble. So Cars and Coffees for September, we actually had 2 events on Uville Drive in Orleans. And actually in Uville Drive in Orleans, we took the time to go and see the Ford dealer across the street. And we saw a Mach-E that was there in the body shop, and we saw an E-Transit on their lot, and we saw 2 Lightning Pros. So we've seen several copies of the Lightning, the Lariat edition, which is much more expensive, but the Lightning Pro is the fleet version, which is considerably cheaper, and there were 2 of them on their lot. So it's interesting to see that they're shipping them in what looks to be a reasonable volume. So cool. Next after that, So September 10th, we did the event in Kemptville. That worked out really well. Our friend Jeff Goodman from Kemptville actually managed to do a fair amount of publicity on the event, and we attracted quite a few people. I don't remember the exact number of test drives we did, but I believe it's somewhere between 60 and 80 on that day. As you can see in the picture there, we had a good variety of vehicles, 2 Ioniq 5s, we had 2 Mach-Es, my Model Y, the Kia Niros, etc. So it was a very good event. And that's the first event where we borrowed cars from Tony Graham EV. And that also worked out well. So we had 3 of their cars. So next,
What model they supplying? The Niro?
So they supplied a Kona and a Mach-E and one of the Ioniq 5s.
Oh, okay. So for 3 different brands. Cool.
Yeah, and these are
Yeah,
these are for sale actually, right? So we actually used the Mustang and the Ioniq 5 last weekend also. But Sam assures me that he sold the Ioniq 5 to someone on the weekend, but we'll see what happens. anyways, we thought we had it sold the weekend before, but actually our goal is not to sell the cars for them. But if people are looking for those cars and they're interested in buying one, we certainly don't hesitate to mention that they're available at Tony Graham EV. Okay. So other past events. So Tuesday, September 13th, we had an event at OCH, Auto Community Housing, on Gladstone. We had some press coverage there. I saw some footage in the, I believe it was the CBC News, where I wasn't talking, other people were talking, but they showed me driving the Nero and cleaning the Nero, which I got ribbed about. But anyways, that's okay. Anyway, so we had to postpone the test drives, unfortunately, because the weather, the forecast was for heavy rains and thunder and lightning, so we postponed them to the week after. And unfortunately, somehow the word didn't get around that these test drives were available the week after. So we had literally 0 test drives. We had a few people come over and talk to us, but we had no test drives delivered on that day. September 15th, Leah from EnviroCenter did a presentation based on some of the content that we provided to them on EV 101 stuff, essentially. And I was there to answer questions. There should be a recording available soon. I was looking for it today, but could not find it. So we'll see. It should be there soon. When it's available, I'll put a link on our website. And Mike, maybe we could put a link on our YouTube channel, right? So the last weekend, so we had, as many of you know, we had 2 big events on the last weekend. So the Outaouais Electric Auto Show from Friday the 23rd to Sunday the 25th. So I talked to the promoter. She didn't talk about it, but sent email to the promoter asking for his stats. And he's a bit disappointed on the number of visitors. He thought there'd be more, but there were 6,000. And there were about 500 test drives that were delivered. It might be actually a bit more than 500 because there's a total of at least 1,000 people who were drivers and or passengers in EVs. And I know in my case, I've swapped drivers several times during the test drives I was doing. And I could tell you that with the cars we had, we were very, very busy. It was great that we were able to leverage the Mustang from Tony Graham and the Ioniq 5 from Tony Graham. And Mike helped out on Sunday. And anyways, it was a great event. You could see there on the upper right-hand corner that there was a Taiga Sea-Doo, I guess. It's not really Sea-Doo, it's a personal watercraft, I guess, and electric, and a very exciting product. I need to convince the boss that I should get one of those. So Nicola, if you're listening, maybe you could make a PowerPoint to justify that. So that's that's an inside joke. Sorry.
So he did a thumbs up for that.
Okay. So in the upper left-hand corner, you could see essentially our booth with we had Mitchell's father, so Larry House, brought his e-tron, which it's a 2018, but it looks brand new. And he's actually replacing that one pretty soon, but it's a very nice vehicle, of course, fully electric. And we had Craig's Model Y, we had Lawrence's Model 3, and we had Stephen's Model S. There was also a Model X in there that Tony Graham EV actually brought on the show floor. So very, very fun show. There was actually, you could see a pontoon boat there a bit on the left-hand side, very similar to the one that I have. And my understanding is by Saturday, he had already sold 2 copies of it and had a lot of interest because most people have no idea that you could get an electric pontoon boat, right? So his objective for that show was to really make people conscious that it's an option. So the other past event was of course, the Saturday event at Lansdowne, the Sustainability Showcase and what do you call it again? EV exhibition. Lots of people there, lots of test drives. We were very busy. The whole day was test drive after test drive. So I'm very happy of the event. I believe we got somewhere around 80 test drives throughout the day. And I'm getting I'm going to get clearer numbers from EnviroCenter. They hadn't worked out all the numbers yet as of today. So, but we had 7 cars doing test drives, and we had it must have been at least 15 cars on static display. So very good variety of cars. Just about every common model was represented, and we had very few duplicates, so very, very happy with the event. And again, thank you to all the volunteers who did so much this month to help with the event. So both August and September were extremely busy months, and I'm very grateful that people have stepped up to help us out to achieve what we've been able to achieve. So if we're looking at upcoming events, what we found is that there aren't that many people that are going in person at l'Institut. So that being said, we might use a smaller room at the Institute to do our meetings, and leave the bigger room to a larger group that would like to use that meeting room on Mondays. So we'll use one of the conference rooms at the Institute for now and see how it goes. If we have more people and outgrow the space, then we'll figure out what other options we have. But I expect that the meeting, October 31st meeting, will be again at the Institute. And yeah, so that's it for that. Now, so Mike, I don't know if you had any other, if you saw my message about the 8th there, that we have something with our friends at Tony Graham, right? But in terms, sorry?
Mike is unavailable.
He's unavailable, okay. Okay. Anyways, so the dates we have right now and the locations we have right now you see there. So October 1st will be at the Science and Technology Museum, so we won't have a Cars and Coffee as such. But October 8th, we've got Country Perks on Trim Road scheduled. Then 15th, well, I won't read it out. You could read it yourselves. So we've got some dates set until October 29th. I'm not sure if Mike is back there, whether he wants to continue past October. I'd certainly be okay with doing that. Of course, I don't attend every one of these events. But it's always fun to talk to people around a coffee. Okay, so the other upcoming event, which is the only public event we have left for this year, is at the Canada Science and Technology Museum on Saint Laurent. So here, the picture you see here, I just want to illustrate for those who will be attending, is that actually we'll have a booth inside with 2 EVCO volunteers, and then we'll have test drives outside. We have a good number of cars already signed up for the event. We could always use more, so if you'd like to come either for static display or for to do test drives, you're more than welcome to join us. There's a little mistake here in the, this is a picture that the people from the museum sent us back, but anyways, so here, if you look at where there's a truck there, we'll have a tent, a few tents, and we'll have the display models, so the static display. Then we'll use the middle part here where there's that blue or purplish arrow. We'll use that to park the cars that are used for the test drives, and we'll do like we've done before. We'll alternate parking so that the cars aren't so close to each other and the doors could open without hitting the other car. We won't use a section here on the left. We'll just use a section on the right. We should have enough space for all the cars. Should be a very interesting event. I know that my vehicle is already booked for at least 6 test drives, and I know that there's others that that have a very full schedule. Mike in particular has got a very full schedule. Okay.
I'm back now. And yeah, I'm fully booked now, I think.
Yeah, you're fully booked. Yeah.
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 Did you have a question for me earlier?
The question for you earlier was it was about the cars and coffee, whether you want to do something on the 8th, given that we're supposed to be a 20-gram Toyota.
Well, somebody's supposed to be a 20-gram Toyota, but
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping it would be you.
Okay, that's fine. So we could do it that way then. That would be that's cool with me. No problem at all.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't have to add the cars and coffee, but it's, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure it out.
Okay, cool. Okay, next, again, reminder that we have an EVCO YouTube channel. I don't know, the subscribers are way above 9. I'm not sure what the number is. I think we might have hit 40 or more, but don't know for sure. But just a reminder that our monthly meetings are on there, and we have a few other videos that are available there. Okay, so that is it.
And that's it for the September 2022 monthly meeting for the Electric Vehicle Council of Ottawa. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to participate live and in person, we hold our meetings on the last Monday of every month. You can find out how to join us at evco.ca. And as always, we post our meetings after the fact here on YouTube. So we'll see you next month.